Section 5 of Weird Tales, Jules de Grandin, Volume 2, by Seabury Quinn. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Ancient Fires, Part 1. Tiens, friend Trowbridge, this is interesting. Jules de Grandin passed the classified page of the Times across the breakfast table, and indicated one of the small advertisements with the polished nail of his well-groomed forefinger. Regard this, Avis, if you please, and say if I am not the man. Fixing my reading glasses firmly on my nose, I perused the article he pointed out. Wanted, a man of more than ordinary courage to undertake confidential and possibly dangerous mission. Great physical strength not essential, but indomitable bravery and absolute fearlessness in the face of seemingly supernatural manifestations are. This is a remarkable work and will require the services of a remarkable man. A fee up to $10,000 will be paid for the successful prosecution of the case. X.L. Selfridge, Attorney, Jennifer Building. De Grandin's round blue eyes shone with elated anticipation as I put down the paper and regarded him across the cloth. Morbleu, is it not an apple from the tree of divine providence? He demanded, twisting the ends of his diminutive blond mustache ferociously. A remarkable man for a remarkable work, do they say? Cordieu, but Jules de Grandin is that man, nor do I in any wise imply perhaps. You will drive me down to that so generous solicitor, friend Trowbridge, and we shall together collect from him this $10,000, or may I never hear the blackbirds whistle in the trees of St. Cloud again. Sounds like some bootlegger advertising for a first lieutenant, I discouraged, but he would not be gainsaid. We shall most certainly go to see this remarkable lawyer, who offers a remarkable fee to a remarkable man, he insisted, rising and dragging me from the table. Morbleu, my friend, excitement is good, and gold is good too, but gold and excitement together, la la, they are a combination worthy of any man's love. Come, we shall go right away, at once, immediately. We went. Half an hour later we were seated across a flat-topped mahogany desk, staring at a thin, undersized little man with an oversized bald head and small, sharp, bird-like black eyes. "This seems incredibly good, gentlemen," the little lawyer assured us when he had finished examining the credentials de Grandin showed. "I had hoped to get some ex-service man, some youngster who hadn't gotten his fill of adventure in the Great War, perhaps, or possibly some student of psychic phenomena. But, my dear sir," he beamed on my friend, "to secure a man of your standing is more than I had dared hope. Indeed, I did not expect such characters existed outside book covers." "Parbleu, monsieur, et la vue," de Grandin replied with one of his impish smiles. "I have been in what you Americans call some tight places, but never have I been shut up in a book. Now, if you will be so good as to tell us something of this so remarkable mission you wish undertaken." He paused, voice and eyebrows raised interrogatively. "To be sure." The attorney passed a box of cigars across the desk. "You'll probably consider this a silly sort of case for a man of your talents, but, well, to get down to brass tacks, I've a client who wants to sell a house." "Ah," de Grandin murmured noncommittally, "and we are to be indomitably fearless real estate brokers, perhaps?" "Not quite," the lawyer laughed. "Nothing quite as simple as that. You see, Red Gables is one of the finest properties in the entire lake region. It lies in the very heart of the mountains, with a commanding view, contains nearly 3,000 acres of good land, and, in fact, possesses nearly every requisite of an ideal country estate or a summer hotel or sanitarium. Normally, it's worth between $300,000 and $400,000, but unfortunately it possesses one drawback, a drawback which makes its market value practically nil. It's haunted. "Eh, do you say so?" De Grandin sat up very straight in his chair and fixed his unwinking stare on the attorney. "Parbleu! It will be a redoubtable ghost whom Jules de Grandin cannot eject for a fee of 200,000 francs. Say on, my friend, I burn with curiosity." "The house was built some 75 years ago, when that part of New York State was little better than a wilderness," the attorney resumed. "John Aglenbury, son of Sir Rufus Algenbury, and the great uncle of my client, was the builder. He came to this country under something of a cloud, pretty well estranged from his family, and built that English manor house in the midst of our hills as a refuge from all mankind, it seems. As a young man he'd served with the British army in India, and got mixed up in rather a nasty scandal. Went gazi, fell in love with a native girl and threatened to marry her. There was a devil of a row. His folks used influence to have him dismissed from the service and cut off his allowance to force him back to England. After that they must have made his life pretty uncomfortable for him, for when he inherited a pile of money from a spinster aunt, he packed up and came to America, building that beautiful house out there in the woods, and living like a hermit the rest of his life. The girl's family didn't take matters much easier than Aglenbury's, it seems. Something mysterious happened to her before he left India. I imagine he'd have stayed there in spite of hell and high water, if she'd lived. Somehow the Aglenbury fortune petered out. John Aglenbury's younger brothers both came to this country and settled in New York, working at one thing and another till he died. They inherited the property share and share alike under our law, but it never did them any good. Neither of them was ever able to live in it, and they could never sell it. Something, mind you, I'm not saying it was a ghost, but something damned unpleasant, nevertheless, has run off every tenant who's ever attempted to occupy that place. My client is young John Aglenbury, great-nephew of the builder, and last of the family. He hasn't a cent to bless himself with, except the potential value of Red Gables. That's the situation, gentlemen. A young man, heir to a baronetcy, if he wished to go to England to claim it, poorer than a church mouse, with $500,000 property eating itself up in taxes, and no way to convert it into a dime in cash till he can find someone to demonstrate that the place isn't devil-ridden. Do you understand why we're willing to pay a $10,000 fee, contingent on the success of re-establishing Red Gables' good name?" "Tiens, monsieur," de Grandin exclaimed, grinding the fire from his half-smoked cigar, "we do waste the time. I am all impatience to try conclusions with this property-destroying ghost who keeps your so deserving client out of the negotiation of his land and me from a $10,000 fee. Morbleu, this is a case after my own heart. When shall we start for this so charming estate, which is to pay me $10,000 for ridding it of its spectre tenants?" John Aglenbury, chiefly distinguished by a wide friendly grin, met us at the railway station, which lay some 5 miles from Red Gables, and extended a warm hand-clasp in greeting. "It's mighty good of you gentlemen to come up here and give me a lift," he exclaimed as he shepherded us along the platform and helped stow our traps into the unkept tonneau of a Ford which might have seen better days, though not recently. "Mr. Selfridge phoned me yesterday morning, and I hustled up here to do what I could to make you comfortable. I doubt you'd have been able to get any of the village folks to drive you over to the place. They're as frightened of it as they would be of a mad dog." "But, monsieur," de Grandin expostulated, "do you mean to say you have been in that house by yourself this morning?" "Uh-huh, and last night too," our host replied. "Came up here on the afternoon train yesterday, and tidied things up a bit." "And you saw nothing, felt nothing, heard nothing?" de Grandin persisted. "Of course not," the young man answered impatiently. "There isn't anything to see or feel, or hear either, if you accept the usual noises that go with the country place in the springtime. There's nothing wrong with the property, gentlemen. Just a lot of silly gossip which has made one of the finest potential summer resorts in the country a drug on the market. That's why Mr. Selfridge and I are so anxious to get the statement of gentlemen of your caliber behind us. One word from you will outweigh all the silly talk these yokels can blab in the next 10 years. De Grandin cast me a quick smile. He acknowledges our importance, my friend, he whispered. Truly, we shall have to walk fast to live up to such a reputation. Further conversation was cut short by our arrival at the gates of our future home. The elder Aglenbury had spared no expense to reproduce a bit of England in the Adirondacks. Tall posts of stone flanked the high iron gate which pierced the ivy-mantled wall surrounding the park, and a wide gravelled driveway, bordered on each side by a wall of cedars, led to the house, which was a 2-story Tudor structure with shingles of natural red cedar, from which the place derived its name. Inside, the house bore out the promise of its exterior. The hall was wide and stone-paved, wainscoted with panels of walnut and with a beam ceiling of adze-hewn cedar logs and slabs. A fieldstone fireplace, almost as large as the average suburban cottage's garage, pierced the north wall, and the curving stairs were built with wide treads and balustrated with hand-carved walnut. A single oil painting, that of the elder John Aglenbury, relieved the darkness of the wall facing the stairway. "But, monsieur, this is remarkable," de Grandin asserted as he gazed upon the portrait. "From the resemblance you bear your late kinsman you might easily be taken for his son. Yes? Pardieu, were you dressed in the archaic clothes of his period, you might be himself." "I've noticed the resemblance, too." Young Aglenbury smiled. "Poor old Uncle John, gloomy-looking cove, wasn't he? Anyone would think all his friends were dead, and he was making plans to visit the village undertaker himself." The Frenchman shook his head reprovingly at the younger man's facetiousness. "Poor gentleman," he murmured. "He had cause to look sad. When you, too, have experienced the sacrifice of love, you may look saddened, my friend." We spent the remainder of the afternoon surveying the house and surrounding grounds. Dinner was cooked on a portable camp outfit over blazing logs in the hall fireplace, and about 9 o'clock all three of us mounted the stairs to bed. "Remember," de Grandin warned, "if you hear or see the slightest intimation of anything which is not as it should be, you are to ring the bell beside your bed, my friend. Dr. Trowbridge and I shall sleep like the cat, with one eye open and claws alert." "Not a chance," our host scoffed. "I slept here last night and never saw or heard anything more supernatural than a stray rat, and mighty few of those. I might have slept half an hour or twice that long when a gentle nudge brought me wide awake and sitting bolt upright in bed. Trowbridge, friend Trowbridge." De Grandin's voice came through the darkness from across the room. "Rise and follow. I think I hear Monsieur Aglenbury's alarm bell." I slipped a bathrobe over my pajamas and took the loaded automatic and flashlight from under my pillow. "All right," I whispered. "I'm ready." We stole down the hall toward our host's room, and de Grandin paused beside the door. Clearly we made out the sound of an untroubled sleeper's heavy breathing. "Guess you've been hearing things, de Grandin," I chuckled in a low voice, but he held up one slender hand in warning. "Psst! Be still," he commanded. "Do you not hear it too, my friend? Hark!" I listened with bated breath, but no sound save the occasional ghostly creak of a floor-board came to my ears. Then, faint, so faint it might have been mistaken for the echo of an imagined sound, had it not been for its insistence, I heard the light, far-away sounding tinkle-tinkle of bells. Tink-a-tink, a tink-a-tink, tink-a-tink, A tink-a-tink they sounded, scarcely louder than the swishing of silk, every third and fifth beat accentuated in an endless circular rhythm. But their music did not emanate from the room beyond the door. Rather, it seemed to me, the tiny, fairy-like ringing came up the stairway from the hall below. My companion seemed struck by the same thought, for he crept past me toward the stairhead, his soft-soled slippers making no more noise against the hardwood floor than the beating of a moth's wing against the night air. Close behind him I slipped, my gun and flashlight held in instant readiness, but at sight of his eager, strained face as he paused at the top of the stair, I forgot my weapons and stole forward, to peep over his shoulder. A shutter must have come unfastened at one of the small high windows in the hall, for a patch of dim moonlight, scarcely more than 3 feet in diameter, lay upon the floor directly beneath the portrait of the elder Aglinberry, and against the circle of luminance a thin, almost impalpable wreath of smoke seemed drifting before a draught of air from the fireplace. I looked again. No, it was not smoke. It was something with a defined outline. It was a wisp of muslin, air-light and almost colourless in its sheerness, but cloth nevertheless. And now, as I gazed unbelievingly, something else seemed slowly taking form in the moonlight. A pair of narrow, high-arched feet and tapering, slender ankles, unclothed except for a double loop of bell-studded chains, were mincing and gyrating on flexible toes, while, fainter than the feet, but still perceptible, the outline of a body as fair as any that ever swayed to the tempo of music showed against the black background of the darkened hall like a figure dimly suggested in an impressionistic painting. Round and round, in a dazing but incredibly graceful dance, the vision whirled, the hem of the muslin skirt standing outward with the motion of the pirouetting feet, the tiny golden bells on the chain anklets sending out their fairy music. "Morbleu!" de Grandin whispered softly to himself. "Do you see it also, friend Trowbridge?" I began in a muted voice, but stopped abruptly, for a puff of passing breeze must have closed the shutter, cutting off the moonbeam as a theatrical spotlight is shut off by a stage electrician. The illusion vanished instantly. There was no elfin, dancing form before the painted likeness of old John Aglinberry, no sound of clinking anklets in the old house. We were just a pair of sleep-dishevelled men in bathrobes and pyjamas standing at a stairhead, and staring foolishly into the darkness of a deserted hallway. "I thought I saw—" I began again, but again I was interrupted, this time by the unmistakable clatter of the handbell in Aglinberry's room. We raced down the corridor to him and flung open the door. "Monsieur Aglinberry," de Grandin gasped, did anything come into your room? Dr. Trowbridge and I—" The young man sat up in bed, grinning sheepishly at us in the double beam of our flashlights. "I must be getting a case of nerves," he confessed. "Never had the jumps like this before. Just a moment ago I fancied I felt something touch my lips. Like the tip of a bat's wing it was, soft as velvet, and so light I could scarcely feel it. But it woke me up, and I grabbed the bell and began ringing like a fool. Funny, too," he glanced toward the window. "It couldn't have been a bat, for I took particular pains to nail mosquito netting over that window this morning. It's torn." Sure enough, the length of strong netting which our host had thoughtfully tacked across the windows of both our rooms and his as a precaution against early spring insects, was rent from top to bottom as though by a knife. He muttered. "It might have been a bat at that." "To be sure," de Grandin agreed, nodding so vigorously that he resembled a Chinese mandarin. "It might, as you say, monsieur, have been a bat. But I think you would sleep more safely if you closed the window." Crossing the room, he drew the casement to and shot the forged iron bolt into place. "Bonsoir, my friend." He bowed formally at the doorway. "A good night, and be sure you leave your window closed." "Would you gentlemen like to look at the property down by the lake?" Aglenbury asked as we finished our breakfast of bacon and eggs, coffee and fried potatoes the following morning. "Assuredly," de Grandin replied, as he donned top coat and cap, slipping his ever-ready automatic pistol into his pocket. A soldier's first caution should be to familiarize himself with the terrain over which he is to fight. We marched down a wide, curving drive bordered by pollarded willows, toward the smooth sheet of water flashing in the early morning sunlight. "We have one of the finest stands of native hardwood to be found anywhere in this part of the country," Aglenbury began, waving his stick toward an imposing grove to our right. "Just the timber alone is worth, well, of all the copper-riveted nerve," he broke off angrily, hastening his pace and waving his cane belligerently. "See there! Some fool camper started a fire in those woods. Hi, there you! Hi there! What are you doing?" Hurrying through the trees, we came upon a little clearing where a decrepit, weather-blistered van was drawn up beside a small spring, 2 moth-eaten appearing horses tethered to a nearby tree, and several incredibly dirty children wrestling and fighting on the short grass. A man in greasy corduroys lay full length on the ground, a black slouch hat pulled over his eyes, while another lounged in the doorway of the van. 2 women in faded shawls and headkerchiefs and an amazing amount of pin-checked jewelry were busily engaged, one in hewing down underbrush to replenish the campfire, the other stirring some sort of savory mess in a large, smoke-blackened kettle, which swung over the blazing sticks. "What the devil do you mean by building a fire here?" Aglenbury demanded angrily as we came to a halt. "Don't you know you are likely to start a blaze in these woods? Go down to the lake if you want to camp. There's no danger of burning things up there." The women looked at him in sullen silence, their fierce black eyes smouldering angrily under their straight black brows. But the man lying beside the fire was not minded to be hustled from his comfortable couch. "Too much a stone by the lake," he informed Aglenbury lazily, raising the hat from his face, but making no other move toward obeying the summons to quit. "Too much a stone and sand. I like it as the grass to lay on. I stay here, see?" "By George, we'll see about that," replied our irate host. "You'll stay here, will you? Like hell you will." Stepping quickly to the fire, he shouldered the crouching woman out of his path and scattered the blazing sticks from under the kettle with a vigorous kick of his heavy boot, stamping the flame from the brands and kicking earth over the embers. "Stay here, will you?" he repeated. "We'll see about that. Pull your freight, and pull it in a hurry, or I'll have the whole gang of you arrested for trespass." The reclining gypsy leaped to his feet as though propelled by a spring. "You tellin' me pull it a freight? You kickin' my fire out? You? Ha, I show you something." His dirty hand flew to the girdle about his greasy trousers, and a knife's evil flash showed in the sunlight. "You think you make it a fool of Nikolai Brondovich. I show you." Slowly, with a rolling tread which reminded me of a tiger preparing to leap, he advanced toward Aglenbury, his little, porcine eyes snapping vindictively, his bushy eyebrows bent into an almost straight line with the ferocity of his scowl. "Eh bien, Monsieur le Bohemien," Jules de Grandin remarked pleasantly, "were I in your shoes, and very dirty shoes they are too, I would consider what I did before I did it." The gypsy turned a murderous scowl on him and stopped short in his tracks, his narrow eyes contracting to mere slits with apprehension. The Frenchman had slipped his pistol from his pocket and was pointing its uncompromising black muzzle straight at the centre of the Romany's checked shirt. "Meester," the fellow pleaded, sheathing his knife hurriedly and forcing his swarthy features into the semblance of a smile. "I make it a joke. I not mean to hurt your friend. I poor man, trying to make honest living by selling horses. I not mean to scare your friend. We take it a camp off his land right away." "Pardieu, my friend, I think you will," de Grandin agreed, nodding approvingly. "You will take your so filthy wagon, your horses, your women, and your brats off from this property. You leave at once, immediately, right away." He waved his blue steel pistol with an authoritative gesture. "Come, I have already waited too long. Try not my patience, I beseech you." Muttering imprecations in their unintelligible tongue and showering us with looks as malignant as articulate curses, the gypsies broke camp under our watchful supervision, and we followed them down the grass-grown drive toward the lake front. We watched them off the land, then proceeded with our inspection of the estate. Red Gables was an extensive property, and we spent the better part of the day exploring its farther corners. By nightfall all three of us were glad to smoke a sociable pipe and turn in shortly after dinner. I was lying on my back staring straight upward to the ceiling of our chamber and wondering if the vision of the night before had been some trick of our imaginations, when de Grandin's sharp, strident whisper cut through the darkness and brought me suddenly wide awake. "Trowbridge," he murmured, "I hear a sound. Some one is attempting entrance." I lay breathless a moment, straining my ears for any corroboration of his statement, but only the soughing of the wind through the evergreens outside and the occasional rasp of a bough against the house rewarded my vigil. "Rats," I scoffed. "Who tried to break into a house with such a reputation as this one's? Why, Mr. Selfridge told us even the tramps avoided the place as if it were a plague spot." Nevertheless, he insisted as he drew on his boots and pulled a top-coat over his pajamas, "I believe we have uninvited guests, and I shall endeavour to mend their manners, if such they be." There was nothing to do but follow him. Downstairs, tiptoe, our flashlights held ready and our pistols prepared for emergency, we stole through the great, dark hall, undid the chain fastener of the heavy front door, and walked softly around the angle of the house. At de Grandin's direction we kept to the shadow of the tall, black-branched pine trees which grew near the house, watching the moonlit walls of the building for any evidence of a housebreaker. "It is there the young Aglenbury sleeps," de Grandin observed in a low voice as he indicated a partly open casement on the second floor, its small pane shining like an acre in the rays of the full moon. "I observe he has not obeyed our injunctions to close his sash in the night time. Morbleu, that which we did see last night might have been harmless, my friend, but again, it might have been— Ah, my friend, look, look!" Stealthily, silently as a shadow, a stooped form stole around the corner of the wall, paused huddled in a spot of darkness where the moonbeams failed to reach, then slowly straightened up, crept into the light, and began mounting the rough rubble-stone side of the house, for all the world like some great, uncanny lizard from the pre-Adamite days. Clinging to the protuberances of the rocks with claw-like hands, feeling for toe-holds in the interstices where cement had withered away, the thing slowly ascended, nearer and yet nearer Aglenbury's unlatched window. "Dieu, de Grandin muttered, if it be a phantom, our friend Aglenbury is in misfortune, for 'twas he himself who left his window unfastened. If it be not a ghost, parbleu, it had better have said its paternosters, for when he puts his head in that window, I fire." I saw the glint of moonlight on the blue steel of his pistol barrel as he trained it on the climbing thing. Inch by inch the creature, man or devil, crept up the wall, reached its talon hands across the stone sill, began drawing itself through the casement. I held my breath, expecting the roar of de Grandin's pistol each second, but a sudden gasp of astonishment beside me drew my attention from the creeping thing to my companion. "Look, friend Trowbridge, regardez, s'il vous plaît," he bade me in a tremulous whisper, nodding speechlessly toward the window into which the marauder was disappearing like a great black serpent into its lair. I turned my gaze toward the window again and blinked my eyes in unbelief. An odd luminescence, as if the moon's rays had been focused by a lens, appeared behind the window opening. It was like a mirror of dull silver, or a light faintly reflected from a distance. Tiny bits of impalpable dust, like filings from a silversmith's rasp, seemed floating in the air, whirling, dancing lightly in the converging moon rays, circling about each other like dust motes seen in a sun shaft through a darkened room, driving together, taking form. Literally out of moonlight, a visible, discernible something was being made. Spots of shadow appeared against the phosphorescent gleam. Alternate highlights and shadows became apparent, limning the outlines of a human face, a slender, oval face with smoothly parted hair sleekly drawn across a high, broad forehead. A face of proud-mouthed, narrow-nosed beauty, such as the highest caste women of the Rajputs have. A moment it seemed suspended there, more like the penumbra of a shadow than an actual entity, then seemed to surge forward, to lose its sharpness of outline, and blend mysteriously with the darkness of the night prowler's form, as though a splash of mercury were suddenly thrown upon a slab of carbon. A moment the illusion of light on darkness held, then a scream of wire-edged terror, mingled with mortal pain, shuddered through the quiet night as a lightning flash rips across a thundercloud. The climber loosed both hands from the window-sill, clawed frantically at the empty air above him, then hurtled like a plummet to the earth, almost at our feet. Our flashlights shot their beams simultaneously on the fallen man's face as we reached his side, revealing the features of Nikolai Brondovich, the gypsy Aglenberry had ordered off the place that morning. But it was a different face from that the Romney had displayed when threatening Aglenberry or attempting to conciliate de Grandin. The eyes were starting from their sockets, the mouth hung open with an imbecile, hang-jawed flaccidity, and on the gypsy's lean, corded throat was a knotted swelling, as though a powerful clamp had seized and crushed the flesh together, shutting off breath and blood in a single mighty grasp. Both de Grandin and I recognized the thing before us for what it was. Trust a physician to recognize it. Death is unique, and nothing in the world counterfeits it. The scoundrel had died before his body touched the ground. "Nom de nom," de Grandin murmured wonderingly. "And did you also see it, friend Trowbridge?" "I saw something," I answered, shuddering at the recollection. "And what did you see?" His words came quickly like an eager lawyer cross-examining a reluctant witness. It looked like a woman's face," I faltered, but nom de nom, yes, he agreed, almost hysterically. "A woman's face, a face with no body beneath it. Parbleu, my friend, I think this adventure is worthy of our steel. Come, let us see the young Aglenberry." We hurried into the house and up the stairs, hammering on our host's door, calling his name in frenzied shouts. "Eh, what's up?" his cheery voice responded, and next moment he unfastened the door and looked at us, a sleepy grin mantling his youthful face. "What's the idea of you chaps breaking a fellow's door down at this time o' night?" he wanted to know. "Having bad dreams?" "Mon monsieur," de Grandin stammered, his customary aplomb deserting him. "Do you mean, have you been sleeping?" "Sleeping?" the other echoed. "What do you think I went to bed for? What's the matter? Have you caught the family ghost?" He grinned at us again. "And you have heard nothing, seen nothing? You do not know an entrance to your room was almost forced?" de Grandin asked incredulously. "An entrance to my room?" The other frowned in annoyance, looking quizzically from one of us to the other. "Say, you gentlemen had better go back to bed. I don't know whether I'm lacking in a sense of humor or what my trouble is, but I don't quite get the joke of waking a man up in the middle of the night to tell him that sort of cock and bull story." Nom du chef-fleur! de Grandin looked at me and shook his head wonderingly. "He has slept through it all, friend Trowbridge." Aglenberry bristled with anger. "What are you fellows trying to do, string me?" he demanded hotly. "Your hat, your coat, your boots, monsieur," de Grandin exclaimed in reply. "Come outside with us. Come and see the vile wretch who would have slaughtered you like a pig in the shambles. Come and behold, and we shall tell you how he died." Section 5